Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovilians. And today we have a special friend with us, Holger. Namaste, Holger.
Hello.
I don't know where to begin because you have so much knowledge and so much experience, but perhaps you could tell me a little bit about your early life and your life in Germany and your experiences there. And then we can go into how you heard of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Well, any way you like it.
Good. Let's do that. So I'm basically from Munich, South Germany, and I play music since childhood. Violin. I'm a violinist. I liked that because when my parents played music together, that was one of the few moments when they were in a good space.
And what did they play, your mother and father?
Very simple classical music, mostly failing in the attempt, but having fun. So I was like, oh, that seems to be a good thing to do.
And, well, what was it like for you growing up in Germany? Was it a happy childhood?
That's a difficult expression. I'm also father of several children, and I tried to produce happy childhoods for them, but it's always, our being human is always a mixed thing, no? So yeah, there were things difficult. My mother was rather very structured mind and taught me thinking properly. That's nice. But then things were also missing. Empathy. My dad was not there much, as most people after the war, most men especially, were busy with, earning money and reconstructing and being important, generally speaking. So that is also my normal German. I'm born 58.
58.
So that is, but within that I had actually a good childhood. I didn't have fear, I didn't have hunger, these kind of things.
Yeah.
That was quite nice. Then there was resistance against this saturated, materialistic, after the war Germany, but that came only with puberty then. When new ideas come, when there is a kind of little bit own process of thinking starting, where things like liberty and equality
and fraternity
become suddenly visible, and you say, hey, what's that about? That's not right, that's not fair. So for me, from 14 onwards, I saw these things, became quite naturally a socialist, which was quite naturally horrible for my dad, who wanted to make as much money as possible for him and the family. So then it was quite a fallout. And then I experienced quite a bit of alienation from this world and also from my parents. And that was probably the most troublesome time.
What did you study in those days? Did you read different books?
Yeah, I read books. I was actually quite scientifically interested. Yeah, I thought I would be a biochemist, or astronomy was very interesting. It was time of the moon landing, which I saw, and these kind of things were very inspiring for me. Music, I always got told that I'm not talented enough, because both my parents had the opinion it doesn't matter so much what I do as long as I'm one of the best. That was always their saying. Something I think this is one of the worst heritages. Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't blame them anymore, because this was all over. It was all Germany was like that, or is still. So music was only coming back through the back door with rock music and with the resistance against all that. I was for a while quite fascinated by the 70s terrorist groups in Germany.
Baader-Meinhof.
Baader-Meinhof. I
Yeah.
was quite in following what's happening there and so on. Not attracted to the violence. Somehow this never interested me very much. The resistance interested me. And then I saw that also looking at the reality of socialism, etc. I said this appears not to be a working solution for mankind, at least not yet. So I looked at myself more, and then I found that psychological. I need psychological knowledge about myself. So it sort of started from there, a kind of need for introspection. So I started therapies. With 18 already, I was in a psychotherapy, which was also quite needed if I look back.
And what were you reading? What kind of books were you reading then? Philosophical or novels or
novels partly. What's his name? Who wrote Siddhartha? Hermann Hesse.
Hermann Hesse.
These youth writers.
Yes, I read everything he wrote.
Yeah, but you're such a reader.
He fascinated me.
Yeah.
Magister Ludi.
And now? Does he still interesting, no? That's what I said. He's a youth writer.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. So when did you first hear of Sri Aurobindo and Mother?
I can very well remember that. I probably was 17, and one friend living in the basement of a house, which was a commune of long-haired hippies, and he was having a room down there and one bed and one chair, and I went down to him, and he was sitting in the chair doing nothing. And that was really weird for me. It's like, why would one sit just like this in the chair? Then I walked around, I saw he had a book on his lap, but he didn't read. And I was like, what are you reading? Sri Aurobindo. So this guy with his 18 years, he did this. He studied philosophy after. I hear today he's a taxi driver, as most philosophers. And that's when I heard first the name. He explained a little bit about it, but I didn't remember much. And around that, actually a year before already, when I was 16, I had a friend, and we had weekly meetings to discuss how an alternative society should look. So we met, and this was going on almost a year. And we had lots of good plans, and we were even also writing down stuff like that. And we had a particular problem that got never solved between us. That was the question, what should we do with members of this community who don't want to work? And of course, we had discussions, what work, does qualify at work, and so on. Basically, he said, no, for practical reasons, we have to exclude them. And when I said, if we do that, then we don't even have to start. Because that must be exactly free to find what work is. I never met him. After a long discussion all through the night, we said we cannot solve that problem. And then we couldn't even look each other in the eye anymore. We didn't meet for years. Many years later, I saw him on a concert of mine, and then I saw he has become a lawyer, and I have become a musician. So quite logic, I would say. So that topic of a Alternative society was always with me. Always means from puberty onwards. And I also remember that at one point I read a very small paragraph in a newspaper, probably I would assume 1976 maybe, or 74, something around that time, talking about Auroville. And I read it and I said, oh, they're already making it. That's good. So then, of course, I had a plan to one day go there. But that was actually all about Sri Aurobindo till I came here. Before my stages were, first I met a Sufi. I was for 1 year with a Sufi, quite intensely actually, with all the Arabic learning a little bit and all learning the surahs and the 5 prayers, and I did that all. And he died mysteriously. That was very unpleasant. And then I met a Kriya Yogi, a disciple of Yogananda. And he was in Munich, and I took initiation. And then I did, for about 1.5 years, I did Kriya Yoga. Also pretty intense. Every day, 45 minutes to 1 hour of the meditations there, which was very good because I worked, after studying in the Mozarteum, I worked in a mental hospital, in a psychiatric hospital, and in a day clinic. I had a lot of freedom to do work there. And I always went in the morning an hour early and did meditation. I think that was very helpful for me. Not maybe for them, I don't know, but for me, to ground me, it was very good. And naturally from there, after this, I went to India first time in 87.
Which you were 29 years old.
Or 7, 58. Yeah, you're right. No, it was 85. It was not 87. It was in 85.
85. Oh.
And I had planned to travel down to Auroville at that time already. But then I was in Puri, where is the home ashram of Sri Yukteswar and Yogananda, and I was somewhat very disappointed of Hariharananda not recognizing me. I mean, obviously he didn't. He saw me 3 times in Munich in the crowd. It was pure fantasy of mine to that think he would say, here you are, my son, stay here. Crap. But what was very good is I understood that that was all projection. Yeah, fantasy, like you said before. So this was helpful for me because I was sitting in the hotel room for 3 days writing a journal, and then decided I will not read any spiritual book anymore till I'm 30, which seemed to be very far away. And when I was 30, I was on tour with some music stars, with a string quartet I had founded. And we were in the back line doing that, so we were all fat alcoholics and having concerts every day, more or less. And then I was...
All classical music?
No, we were playing jazz at the time already.
Okay.
String quartet playing jazz. And whatever. So that made us very suitable career-wise for a lot of... That was the time when we played with Joan Baez and Mercedes Sosa, good artists, famous artists. Because to have a string section in the background that can play very well with horn sections or drummers was useful.
Did you meet any of the people like Fats?
Domino?
Domino?
No, I did. Oh, yeah, well, from what you might think we did share an evening with Paul Bley. That was a famous free jazz pianist. Important guy.
Richie Rich. That was too early, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, too early.
This is.
That's way back in my time.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, that would be another interview somehow.
Yeah.
Then I called off my trip to Auroville. I went home. I said I make a career, and when I was 30, it came back to me through Tina, my partner and mother of my children. She was very unsatisfied with her situation and had also much less experience in alternative thinking and possibilities of spirituality. She was really a newcomer in that, and she stumbled across Sri Aurobindo with a friend in La Palma, and she also is Aurovilian meanwhile, old lady called Barbara. And then she came home from that trip and says, "There is something like Auroville, have you heard of that?" And I say, "Yeah, sure." We have to see that. And I say, "But India is a very hard country. It's not fun, I was there." And she says, "Yeah, but that we have to see. This is really a possibility." And she had 2 children from first marriage, and we had already our first child. So it was like 5 people. And I'm saying, "Okay, you get the tickets." And she had on the next day 5 plane tickets.
Oh.
A woman of action.
Whoa.
Very lovely. So that's how we went to Auroville, which I never regretted.
And what were your first impressions of Auroville?
Through the music, I make very quickly friends. Yeah, so I met Nadaka very early. Actually, I played after 4 days. I played a concert with him. I was very appreciated out there in Ravenna and played there. And then I had very quickly a student, Stefano, the saxophone player.
You mentioned him, yes.
Yes. Who was very happy that I came. And so my first impression was that spiritually is not so much going on. They must be the real people who do the real spirituality. They probably are somewhere hiding in the forest or something like that. Because I'm busy with the music and with the life and with the
Children.
children, my God, 3 children. So Matrimandir was also actually only a building site. You know, the crystal was not even there.
Right.
So the whole idea was fully there and attractive to me, but not so much of the
Reality.
practical reality
Yes.
of that. And so therefore also when we left after 9 weeks of holidays, I remember well, Tina said, "So shall we move? What do you think?" I said, "I think we're not ready. We are not evolved enough." And she says, like who?
Interesting question.
So good. And I was like, I didn't find anyone Aurovilian where I said, this are the people to follow. So I said, "Yeah, well, I think we didn't meet them." And she was very skeptical. She says, "Really, you think so?" So we kept that kind of on hold. We were not sure what to do. And again, it was so that we got a second baby very quickly after that. And I, at the time, studied with a sitar virtuoso called Imrat Khan, younger brother of Vilayat Khan, in Calcutta. And I had there already a session, and I planned another one, and then Tina got pregnant again. And then it basically was in her hand. I was in Calcutta and phoned her, and she says, I'm packing. I will deliver that baby in Auroville.
Ooh.
This is what I have to do. You do what you have to do. So I went home and packed my stuff. So
What was her reasoning?
Desperation, I would say.
Oh.
Desperation of something has to change, I don't know what. Intense, she is. I was always the guy who would read or think or argue and so on. She is somebody who does something. So in this case, it was packing and going there, which was, in terms of ego, a little difficult for me at the time. Suddenly, I had no career anymore. Of course, I planned to have a world important career as a musician. Not that I believe today I would have had one. I'm not of that material, but I wanted it. So that was, of course, not likely to have from within Auroville. And my God, it was crazy. We lived in Center Guest House, and I had almost nothing. I had the violin, and I had a tape and a Sony Professional to listen to a tanpura to practice my Indian classical stuff. And it got stolen in Center Guest House. So very symbolic for me, the few last things I was holding on to be a professional, they were gone in the first weeks. And
First weeks.
It was disastrous.
Yeah, of course, I experienced it many times over.
Yeah.
We had so much theft that almost nothing was left of the Western things.
Yes.
The music systems.
Yes, all
everything could be taken.
Yes.
Watches, anything.
Everything.
Yeah. So then what happened?
And then I started reading Sri Aurobindo.
Oh.
Yeah. Then I was starting. Maybe I had bought the German translations of the letters. That I had started a little bit already in before we came. That was going on. Then I was reading Life Divine, not very successful at the time, too difficult, because my English was a school English. So basically, I had to learn English first. I was immediately attracted to Savitri, but the first two attempts just didn't go over the first chapter. And it only after 2 years, I bought one of those small red ones, these pocket things, 40 rupees at the time. And I took a blue ball pen and I underlined every word that I did not properly know. And then everything was blue. I'm like, oops, I see. I don't speak English.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I do, but no.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. So for me, it was first a journey to learn proper Sri Aurobindonian English, with lots of vocabulary and special vocabulary and so on. So in the beginning, in the first years, it was a chore. I felt obliged to, living in Auroville, to actually know what it is about. Emotionally, or maybe even soul-wise, I was initially attracted by Ramana Maharshi. Going to that place and seeing this, I discovered this kind of depth in the body sense, which is my formulation of a soul experience, and that was very practical in my meditation. So I could sit there, and I had quite a few intense times there to connect this with the philosophy of Sri Aurobindo took maybe 5 years, something like that. Quite a long time, I would say. Until first in the poems, like Divine Hearing and so on. Then I saw, I know that feeling. And then I understood he doesn't write poems because it's nice. No, he writes them to point to this experience. It's helpful.
We have not mentioned Mother yet.
Yeah, very true. And for good reasons. To the day, I read quite a bit, not the agenda much. Also, I read Satprem quite a bit in the beginning, and I didn't like it. I felt
interesting,
oppressed.
Even Adventure of Consciousness?
Even, of course, I was talking to my parents and everybody who wanted to know and didn't want to know how cool that is. But when I think back now on how I felt while I was reading, I wasn't breathing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your friend Andre, who I interviewed last week, said that he read Adventure of Consciousness Russian translation. And then he read, I think he said it was Synthesis of Yoga. And a friend of mine, Andrei Shevchenko, had translated those. So that was what brought him to this.
There are very different ways of coming. Definitely for me, the coming was Auroville as a experiment. If I had read Human Unity at the time, that would have been it. But I didn't. I started with Human Cycle, and then I said, okay, these are political thoughts, and the grandness of it, I couldn't see it at the time. I was too young for that. Like when I read it now, I'm like, oh my God, every sentence is like, how does he have this fantastic overview and this kind of leaning back, but still be active?
And more than 100 years ago, applicable today.
Completely amazing. But when I was 30 or 35, I couldn't see it. I was also thinking probably quite high of myself. And I thought, well, some musings about politics I can also do. What does that have to do with
I got it.
This kind of thing?
But back to Mother now.
Yes.
And the Charter of Auroville.
Well, this is, of course, interesting. This is completely for me from the beginning. It was I would say, in a way, it was almost a religious feeling to go to the amphitheater. And, when Lisa was born, we were there on the 15th of August with the newborn baby, and we were walking in the night with the baby, and this was what is happening. So that I liked a lot.
Mother's writings on education and other things.
Also totally easy. I mean, this we would have done anyway in whatever kind, be it a Krishnamurti school or something like that. Krishnamurti I've been reading, quite a bit.
You had read him.
Yes. So with all the psychology and the psychotherapy, a new way of dealing with children was highly needed. And for me, it was what Mother wrote about education was for me obvious. Of course, we have to do it like that. And that this should be the native place of it. That I would bring my kids to a Auroville school where everybody thinks like that. You don't have to be the oddball, the revolutionary. Everybody thinks like we should deal with our children like that. In reality, I was then often not repelled, but disappointed.
Disenchanted?
Disenchanted by the reality of that this translates to a careless, laissez-faire on the side of a lot of Auroville parents. Like, they do what they want to do, you know. And I always thought it is a full-time job to raise children. In our case, we had 4, so it's at least 2 full-time jobs. And then I tried to also have a full-time job as educator in the cultural field, which means I was basically working all the time. All the time. 12, 14 hours a day, every day. At that time, I was quite a workhorse. Endless energy. Endless.
Yes. So I know the feeling.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. And makes you very arrogant. And not very digestible for the many other human beings.
You speak of the laissez-faire. Do you feel it today still?
Of course, yes. There is a kind of but there's a condition of humanity, no? If you go to, we just have this much power to distribute. So either we get obsessed with children or a work we are doing, then the depth and the liberty is going away. Then everything has to be like this and like that.
Structured. Yeah.
Not interesting. Or we see this, you know, let's have some party and but you have children. Oh, no problem. I put them in the rucksack and I go like this, and I'm like, it's too loud.
Yeah.
So this can be only bridged by
Inner growth.
yes, and we don't have enough of that. So yes, it is there at the moment also. So then we develop automatically all those crutches like school systems, etc., and then before we know, we do it like it's done in Munich.
But your children grew up. They were in future school.
They were in the older one, the older 2 not, because it didn't exist then. Yeah. So Marco went back with 15. He has a different father, so he finished his school in Germany, in the same school that I went. It was cute. I like that. And Marina went to Pondy, to Lycée, and did the French baccalaureate, and then went back to Germany. Marina is the second child of Tina. So she's in Munich, has 2 children of her own now, and Marco too. And the small ones, then Jonas was, I think, 2nd year in future school. It was quite a fresh thing. And it was, for us, the big blessing.
Yes.
It was wonderful. So they didn't have to go to Codecanal or Lycée in the normal system.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I was, and he was both. Then Lisa 2 years later, also future school. Just the other day, I mentioned the 2 books that I read of Akash, which I think is wonderful work he did in both books. And then Jonas saw it on my table, and he says, Akash's books, are they good? I said, they're fantastic. He's a wonderful writer, and he says, I learned all about writing from him. He was a very good teacher for Jonas also. So this school was a blessing. While at the same time, this proposed, particularly in the beginning, this last school versus future school, I never liked it very much. I always thought it's good that we have both. It's very useful.
Dipti Tiwari had the no school or zero school.
All these
But she didn't have many students, but
yes, but it's there. It's in its own
still
way.
there.
It's still there
Yeah.
and quite nice. And for example, Jonas works tree care with Anadi, and I know Anadi from baby, and it's good. It's okay. Jonas went to study economy, but if you see how they do their business, it's a good example for these two things work very well together. There should not be. All in all, what I in the past 33 years see even more than in the beginning is the multitude is what is one of the greatest gifts that we have within Auroville. Not only that there are like 60 so nations. That's maybe even on the paper it sounds good, but practically it's not that useful.
I think this is a good time to close our talk today
Oh my God.
because I want to do another one with you.
Yeah.
So we'll do that.
Cool. Let's do a break.
Namaste all, and thank you for attending.